All right, welcome back. And we just want to switch gears now and talk about that budget, the 3.68 trillion budget that was presented to Parliament last week on Thursday, and some of the sectors that actually were the biggest winners. One of them is the tourism sector. Now, about 22.1 billion shillings was allocated, that is to support tourism, sports, culture, and arts. Now, among this allocation, about 16 billion shillings was is expected to go towards sports, arts and social development fund. 4.1 billion shillings is expected to go towards a tourism fund. Yet another 2 billion shillings is expected to go towards tourism promotion fund. How is this money expected to change the landscape of the tourism sector? To help me with this conversation, I'm joined by none other than Hasnain Nurani, who is also the group CEO of Pride Inn Group of Hotels. Hasnain, welcome to KTN.
Thank you.
All right, first things first, what is your reaction? What was your reaction when you had the CS reading this budget and seeing a space that you play in being one of the biggest beneficiaries of the 2023-24 budget?
Yeah, so first we were very much fingers crossed and hoping that we do get a good budget for the tourism itself. And when the CS did read the budget, we were happy, we were excited that there's been a good growth in terms of the kind of budget that has been allocated to the tourism, to the entire tourism docket. And we believe that this is the beginning of a lot more of opportunities that are available to grow tourism in our beautiful country, magical Kenya.
All right, now, this is one of the sectors that was really impacted when you talk about COVID, when you talk about pre and post election. This is really one of those sectors that hasn't completely recovered. How is this going to change that landscape now? When you look at when you look at these huge sums of money being channeled towards that sector, how is it going to change the landscape? Are we going to see more people getting employed, or?
Yes, actually, so the money is huge. But tourism, I would say, for the tourism sector is so large, and the kind of impact that it can have to the economy of this country is big. And we believe that even more funds and more monies could even do a lot more things. The money that has been allocated, it's a good beginning, and we appreciate the government for allocating that sort of money. Now, a lot of times we have not understood the importance of tourism. Tourism has quite a bit of ripple effects in the economy. If you look at it, today, if you look at within the tourism, there's the MICE tourism and then there's the leisure tourism.
Yeah.
So far, as Kenya, we've been very much focused within the leisure tourism, whilst there's a huge segment of the MICE tourism that is really growing fast. And we are missing out on a huge piece of, on a huge slice of that cake. Now, once these funds are being channeled in the right way, used in the right way, in terms of development of tourism facilities and tourism experiences over and above the marketing element, the growth opportunities in terms of employment. Because think about it, tourism is more about people related. It's all about human resource related. It's all about services, so which means it requires a lot of people to operate it. It's not an industry, it's not a product which is produced by machines. It is all about people and the experiences. So if these funds are utilized in the right way in terms of marketing, in terms of marketing to the various key source markets, the growth of tourism itself would encourage large employment directly and indirectly. All right. Think about it today. If you see that, let's say if we doubled our tourism numbers, every single hotel would be fully booked. Yeah. All right, at nearly 95%. As hotels, we buy everything and anything under the roof. Think about it as agriculture, foodstuff, crockery, cutlery, linen, service, fuel, spares. When tourists are into the country, pubs, bars, shopping malls, everything is busy. Which means that each of these industries have the effect of the ripple effect, and they feel, and the effect comes into them. So there's a direct proportion in terms of the employment growth. There's a direct proportion in terms of the amount of US dollar reserves that the country will gather. There's a direct proportion in terms of how it would affect every single industry. Think about it, if I just give you a simple example. Hotels use large amounts of rice, sugar, oils. Yeah. If every hotel in the country is at 95%, think about the pool demand it's going to create on the oil industry. Mm-hmm. All right, think about the pool demand it's going to create on the sugar industry, on the rice industry, and all the foodstuffs and all the food stock, which means that those industries would be forced to expand, creating more and more employment. So this is a very good start to be able to escalate the growth of this country, of Kenya.
So, Hasnain, from where you sit, are you concerned of how this money is going to be utilized? When you look at these huge allocations, do you sit and worry, is that money going to do what it was allocated to go and do?
I'm not concerned about that at the moment. One of the key things is that we have some very smart and diligent and interactive people within our ministry, all right, especially starting off with our CS Honorable Panina Malonza. And she has a very dedicated vision. She has a very able team under her. It's just about making sure that sometimes what happens is our attention gets diverted to too many things, all right? And my personal thought process is that the entire fund needs to be able to go into marketing as much as possible. In terms of being able to, we need to do a bit of benchmarking to understand where the major tourism, example, like if you look at Zanzibar, who are the key source markets? If you look at our neighboring countries, where are the key source markets? We need to look at our history. We need to look at our future. We need to look at our airline connectivity, and then be able to plan out that these are the areas of source markets that we need to really spend the monies on. Now, when you're looking at source markets, there's no point of really looking at just going to touch the market. My personal thoughts are, we need to create above the line marketing, below the line marketing for the various key source markets. We need to identify the 20% of the markets that would generate us the 80% of the revenues and 80% of the growth. Once we've been able to understand that, be able to go fully into spending the money into those sort of services and be able to benefit the most. So those are the opportunities.
All right, Hassan, when I hear you speaking about marketing, of course, the thing that comes to mind is advertising. Now, we saw a number of taxes being imposed on advertising, from billboards to different products, even on air now. But when you listen to the president, on the other hand, he says a certain budget that the government intends to spend on advertising should go to content creators. Aren't we doing something that is counterproductive? On one hand, we want to advertise. On the other hand, we're imposing taxes on advertisement.
Well, this is one of those, obviously, one of those political and these are one of those economical outlooks itself. And whilst we do understand that the government needs to collect its revenues, which is very important, but that doesn't hamper in terms of what we need to do when it comes to marketing and advertising, and even for content creation. All right, it's there, all right, and we need to understand His Excellency's vision. He has a particular vision, and his entire administration has a particular vision. I believe rather than trying to debate and fight it, we need to come up, and content creators need to come up with more interesting ways as to how they're going to generate revenues that allows the government to get its part of taxes, all right, while still being able to do what we have to do, all right. Being in our position, we might assume that the taxes that the government is trying to charge on every aspect are heavy and they're going to be hard on the country. But I'm sure that there's been a lot of thought process that has been put into place, and there's been some experts that have been brought to understand as to where the country has to go to. I do understand that in my position as the CEO, sometimes we have to make decisions that are not very favorable. But we understand the long-term vision, and sometimes it does become hard to explain to everyone. But it's instead of trying to fight, or rather trying to debate about it or trying to deny it, it'll be good if you're able to try to understand the possible solutions that exist. All right, and how we can overcome it and be able to still move ahead. All
right, let's talk conferencing businesses. Now, for a certain part within the last 10 years, Kenya was sort of the mecca of conferences within the East African region. But now a lot of that business is going towards Rwanda. We're seeing a lot of those businesses happening outside Nairobi. We're seeing a good number of them happening in Addis. And the question is, what needs to happen to bring those businesses back to Kenya?
First and foremost, we need to recreate the Kenya National Convention Bureau, one of the biggest organizations that is purely in charge of marketing and bringing in MICE. All right, is the Kenya National Convention Bureau. It was created, and then I think it was disbanded again, and it was put under the Kenya Tourism Board. So whilst Kenya Tourism Board is important, it's nice, but we need to make sure that we have a separate organization that's fully focusing into the MICE. And you believe, and if I tell you today, I've been reading some statistics. At the moment, as per the International Congress Convention Association statistics of 2018, that was pre-COVID, I haven't been able to read their recent ones. Africa only takes up 3% of the global MICE industry. That is the entire Africa. With South Africa taking up the highest, obviously, then there was the Rwanda, there's the Addis, all right, and then we have Kenya. So there's two things that need to be done. First is we need to create the Kenya National Convention Bureau. One, and second thing is we need to create also, either be able to revamp the Kenyatta International Conference Center, or be able to create a world-class modern convention center that is going to be able to compete with the various convention centers. If I give you a little bit more facts, Egypt in 2019 had, I think, 7.2 million tourists. Do you know 70% of those tourists were MICE tourism? All right, which only tells you that if the MICE tourism is specifically looked at carefully, and being as a global hub of East of Africa, our position, we are very strategically positioned. Our location is fantastic. The connectivity that we have into Kenya is amazing. It requires is the creation of the National Convention Bureau and creating a world-class convention center. And if you start that off with Nairobi itself, that itself is going to be a game changer, because with every MICE tourist that comes in, they follow in with 4 leisure tourists. So look at the proportions. So imagine if you're able to target in, even if it's 500,000 MICE tourism, they will come in the next year with 2 million leisure tourists. So the opportunities and the advantages that we have within the MICE tourism is huge, right? And it still needs to be tapped into.
All right, now let's talk about product diversification. One of the things that when you talk about tourism in Kenya, we're looking at people going to Masai Mara, we're looking at people going to the coast, that is Mombasa, Diani, and just by the beach to be able to enjoy that. But we have so many other products that we could offer. From where you sit, in terms of diversification and marketing these diverse products, what should be the best approach to be able to attract more tourists into the country?
You know, the thing is, for the past many years, we have been too heavily marketing about our migration. And therefore, we have kind of positioned Kenya as a season only for July, August, September, only the migration season, which means that everyone who wants to come into Kenya wants to come in only for those 3 months, making Mara as a 3-month destination, which needs to be changed. Secondly is a lot of people who come into Kenya, they are aware about Kenya's safaris, about the safari, the beautiful safaris we offer. You'll be surprised that a lot of agents and tour operators that we talk to are not aware that Kenya also has some beautiful beach. All right. Over and above that, we have some deserts, we have mountain climbing, we have adventure safaris, we have marine. All these are the areas of opportunities that need to be talked about. And this is where I focus on in terms of, now that we have this budget that has been allocated for tourism promotion, we really need to highlight all the various tourism experiences that we have, and be able to see as to how we can talk about these tourism experiences in the various exhibitions around the world, by making sure that we are attending the various different niches to be able to target those particular niches. Then we also need to look at how we can still, Kenya has a lot of opportunities and possibilities and a lot of experiences. We need to create more and more because we have the land available, we have the resources available. All right. But one of the key challenges that I believe that has really not allowed people to expand on the tourism experiences is the cost of funds in Kenya. You know, at the moment, if you look at it, the cost of interest is at 14%. Even if you had entrepreneurs or people who are looking at creating tourism experiences, but the cost of the finance is so expensive that people have to think twice. So those are the areas that could be looked at in terms of how tourism experiences could get a lower share in terms of a lower cost of funds or lower borrowing rates to be able to expand on the tourism experiences. This gives opportunities to the Kenya Tourism Board and maybe perhaps to the future Kenya National Convention Bureau to talk about these experiences, and it helps everyone.
All right, Hasnain, I know our time is far much spent. Now, the question that I would really want you to help us understand in terms of job creation, we know that an optimal sector, let's say a sector like tourism, there's a figure that you would be working on. Let's say if the sector was operating optimally, there's a number of jobs that would be created. There's a number of the contribution to the GDP. Maybe just help us understand these figures and what size we're talking about.
Tourism could create there's no end to the number of jobs that tourism can create if it's marketed the right way. In terms of numbers, I believe tourism has opportunities of being able to even create more than 4 to 5 million jobs itself. As it is right now, tourism does create over 2 million jobs. All right, and these are jobs I'm talking about directly. And we haven't still tapped into the cream of the opportunities that are available. Like last year, we had 1.4 million arrivals into the country. All right, and if you're able to, and this is now being able to show us how the sector is recovering. If you're able to double that, the kind of job creation would be enormous. And I look at tourism as an unlimited opportunity for creating direct jobs. And we would still plead and encourage the government, whilst we appreciate what has been given this year in the budget. All right, but we still need tourism to be looked at in a very, very much more specific sense in terms of being able to give it even more budgets, be able to give more budgets in the next years to be able to allow the growth more. This is, I would look at it as a starter fund, which would allow us to kickstart the campaigns. But coming in next year, we would encourage and request that, if you're able to get even double the numbers, there's a lot of things that can happen. A lot of times as tourism players, we want to partner with the tourism board, with the ministry, but the restriction comes in terms of this is the maximum amount of monies we have.
Yeah.
So we have to start really choosing. Right now, we want to get to a point in time where we feel that we can go everywhere as tourism players. And tourism players themselves are ready to finance, are ready to work hand in hand with the government to be able to grow this tourism. All right, today if you look at Kenya Airways and Emirates, and Kenya Airways has signed up, they've signed a code-sharing agreement with Emirates. That itself is going to signal the amount of tourism opportunities that we have. It's all about talking about it, and the kind of GDP contribution would be great.
All right, and of course we'll be looking forward to see those numbers in terms of the contribution to GDP, and also just the number of new jobs